greetings all, hope this finds you well as always. It's now time for the latest update from the machine shop, where we're up to and what we're on with. Right, first up, something a little bit different. You may notice this rather oversized pair of stiff joint calipers. They were donated to us. I'm not sure quite where they came from or what on earth they were used to measure, but well, you just can't bring yourself to throw something like that out, now can you? So anyhow, today, Tom Goulding's been hard at it, as always. A lovely lad, Tom. Grafts away like a little trooper, he does. Anyway, these things, when they came in, were jammed solid and orange with rust. Tom's set to give them a good polish up some memory paper, got all the rust off, repaired the pivots. It's the bolt in it was just, it wasn't very nice. It really wasn't very nice. Anyway, Tom's cleaned it all up, new pivot, cleaned them all up, and they're ready for use. What we'll use them for, I'm not quite sure, but as a mate of mine would say, well, you've got them, haven't you? So anyway, if anyone knows where they came from or what on earth they were used to measure, please let me know, because I would actually quite like to know. Right, second up, you may have remembered from last week, there was this jig I showed off, which shortly after that gained a tool ground at no expense spared from a piece of tool steel that had been used for something else. There's the form of the tools. You can see it's basically ground a normal knife tool profile, but it's deliberately very sharp for cutting rubber. It's been honed to a very sharp finish, and I haven't also radiused the point there, so we get a nice sharp fit cut. Anyway, we set it up just as we showed last week, and we set to and machined some gauge frame rubbers. And it worked beautifully. And then we'd done 8 of them, which was what we needed just to get us out of the woods, as it were. And then one of our volunteers, the one and only Karen Webster. For those who don't know Karen, Karen's actually the finance manager at Pickering, and she comes down to the shed when she can to volunteer and do, and she does. And she's lovely and generally wonderful. Anyway, she's never used a machine tool before in her life. Never. Not had anything to do with them. And so Nick brought her in here and said, do you think you can train her how to use this jig? And I said, I know I can. And 10 minutes later, she was busily modifying gauge frame rubbers. And a couple of hours later, we had a bag full with that lot in them. So as you can see, we just modified that outside diameter, skimmed a bit off it so it now actually fits where it's supposed to. And Karen's set to, and done quite the batch there. Incidentally, I've stacked them in 4s just to give some idea of how many of them we'll use, because every washout, that's every 28 steaming days, or days in traffic, the local will require 4 of these, because it will have both gauge glasses renewed. So, as a result, each of these pile of 4 indicates a washout. And so that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15 washouts. I'm sure somebody slightly better at maths than me can multiply 15 by 28 and tell me precisely how many steaming days that is. So this, I think, certainly a good start for a supply for the Q6, the J27, and also the shed's breakdown crane. And Karen went away full of herself, having used a lathe for the first time in her life, very happy with herself, and will be, and I quote, coming back for more, unquote. So there you go, just to show we can pretty much use anybody and stand still for long enough and I'll put you onto machines while you're making bets. So anyway, that's another little job that's been done. Right, in other work, Brian, who's my regular volunteer, has been back in today, and as I said last week, he's got threading on the Myford Bost, and just to prove last week's exercise wasn't a fluke, he's promptly gone on and finished off another 3 of these. These are gauge frame fittings for the crane. They're partially spares, partially to replace some that are damaged, and these were actually rough machined a while ago. The hexagons were put onto them and whatnot, but we haven't got around to threading them. And here today, Brian sat down and threaded them, and as I said, just to prove last week wasn't a fluke, done 3 of them, and very nice they are too. So they're all done, dusted, and ready to go. We've actually got spare parts in stock now. They'll be on the similar next week because we've got another batch of, we've got a batch of spares for the crane, we've got some spares for the Black 5s, and then once he's finished all of that, I will have more spares sorted out that we need to keep the rest of the fleet going. So smashing job that, absolutely brilliant, Brad, spot on, mate. Right, down the other end of the shop, we shall go into the rectification layer, where Barry Neeson and Mark have been very hard at it and got an awful lot of very good work done. Right down the bottom here, we'll just carry on. We've got some of the rods off Repton, and as we can see, they're well on with manufacturing new motion pins, like this one here, and this one here, and that one there, and that one there, and those three there, and that one there, to replace stuff that's got worn out over the years or damaged or whatever. So they're well on with that. That job's coming together very nicely now. We're getting on very well with that. They're doing a smashing job of the lads. So there's another ongoing job which is slowly coming together. Mark's had another quick job in today, which is an emergency request from the boiler shop. Can they have a lapping tool for repairing her sockets of super heater? So he's very quickly, he's just finishing that off now. He's just got to, the tool itself, I mean, there's the drawing as provided by the boiler shop. And what Mark's got to do there is just chop that dumpling of material that's left off and then drill and tap it. I think it's 5/8 if I remember the drawing right. So it'll fit a tool holder that they use. So there's another little job that's coming on very nicely. And then, yeah, so we're keeping busy, basically. We're keeping busy, and stuff's very definitely going out the door. The pile of bits for Repton on the floor is very definitely getting smaller. You will see we now have no crossheads on the floor at all. We only have one expansion link. That's because the expansion links, well, there's one there that's been rebushed that we briefly saw earlier. And then there's another one that's ready to go there. And then that one is just waiting for some material to do the trunnion bushes on that. All the crossheads are now back into the engine. The right-hand crosshead, the last one, was fitted this afternoon. It took a wee bit more fettling and hand scraping. We discovered that the slide bars, the gap between the inner slide bar was slightly tighter than the gap between the outer slide bar and the top slide bar. So we had to do a bit of put it on, trial it, take it off, scrape it, put it back on, and so on and so forth. Trial and error, which is something I love doing, but never mind. Anyway, it's on there now. It's been nipped up this afternoon. It fits, it's on there, and all we're really left to do now is just the last bits of pin and bush work. The only remaining major outstanding job is these two valve crossheads, which came in at the start of the week. The holes in these here, where the pin goes, these go into the, if you look at the combination levers, you'll see there's two bushes at the top of the combination lever. Well, that pin goes through the valve crosshead, goes through the lower of those two bushes. Anyway, the problem is the holes in these valve crossheads are worn oval. So these need, it's the next job for me actually, they need setting up on the milling machine and then boring back to round, and then we can make new pins to suit. Then, pardon me, we can get the rebushing done and they can go out. Looking at them, I might actually, instead of boring them out and making oversized pins, I can see myself actually having to bore them back to round and then bush the crossheads themselves. But I'll, as my boss would say, I'll set fire to that bridge when I come to it. I'll work out precisely how I'm doing that, either later this week or early next. So anyway, that's where we're up to, really. So as you can see, we're keeping on going, as always. Wide variety of jobs, as always, and multi-skilled, multi-talented, and we'll use anybody. So there you are, folks. Hope you found it educational, informative, as always. Take care, and I'll see you around.